The contractions were 3 minutes apart when my husband Marcus handed me the divorce papers. I was clutching the hospital bed rail, my entire body trembling with pain, when he calmly pulled the manila envelope from his designer briefcase and placed it on the table beside my IV drip. His mistress, my former best friend Vanessa, stood in the corner of the delivery room smirking, her hand resting protectively on her own swollen belly. She was 5 months pregnant with what Marcus claimed was his child. I was about to give birth to what he swore wasn't. "Sign them," he said, his voice cold and flat, empty of any emotion. "Sign them now, Claire, or I'll make sure you don't get a single penny. Not the house, not the cars, nothing. You and that bastard you're about to push out will be on the streets by tomorrow." I couldn't speak. The pain ripping through my abdomen stole my breath, my words, my ability to process what was happening. This was Marcus, my husband of 6 years, the man who had held my hand through my father's funeral, who had promised to love me in sickness and health, for richer or poorer, until death do us part. And here he was, serving me divorce papers while I was in active labor, while our child was fighting to enter this world. Another contraction hit, stronger this time, and I screamed. The sound echoed off the sterile hospital walls, raw and primal. Marcus didn't flinch. He just stood there, arms crossed, watching me suffer with the same expression he wore when reviewing quarterly reports at his investment firm. Clinical, detached, calculating. The nurse, a woman in her 50s with kind eyes and graying hair pulled back in a tight bun, rushed to my side. Her name tag read, Patricia. She checked the monitors, her face tightening with concern as she saw my blood pressure spiking, my heart rate accelerating beyond what was safe. She looked at Marcus, then at Vanessa, then back at me, and I saw the moment she understood exactly what was happening in this room. "Sir," she said firmly, her voice cutting through my groans of pain, "I'm going to need you to step outside. This kind of stress is dangerous for both mother and baby. You can't be in here right now." Marcus laughed. It was a short, bitter sound that made my skin crawl. "This is my wife," he said, emphasis on the word dripping with sarcasm. "I have every right to be here, and she needs to sign these papers before she gives birth because the child she's carrying isn't mine. I want it documented. I want it official. I'm not taking responsibility for another man's bastard." The room spun, my vision blurred with tears and pain. Another man's child. He'd been saying it for months, ever since Vanessa had whispered her poison in his ear, since she'd fabricated evidence and lies to convince him I'd been unfaithful. I hadn't. God, I hadn't. I'd never so much as looked at another man. But Vanessa, she was a master manipulator. She'd wanted my life, my husband, my home, and she'd systematically destroyed everything to get it. Before I continue, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. I love hearing from you, and if this story resonates with you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. I need to go back. I need to tell you how I got here, how my perfect life imploded in the span of 6 months, how my best friend became my worst enemy, and how my husband transformed from the man I loved into the monster standing beside my hospital bed, demanding I sign away my rights while giving birth. 10 months ago, everything was different. Marcus and I were happy, or at least I thought we were. We lived in a beautiful colonial in the suburbs, the kind of house I dreamed about as a little girl. White picket fence, wraparound porch, maple trees lining the driveway. Marcus was a senior investment manager at one of the top firms in the city, pulling in close to $400,000 a year. I worked as a freelance graphic designer from home, bringing in another $60,000 annually. We had everything: the perfect house, the perfect cars, the perfect life. And we had Vanessa. She'd been my best friend since college, my maid of honor at my wedding, the person I called when something good or bad happened. She was single, career-focused, and had always said she wasn't interested in marriage or children. She was a corporate lawyer, sharp and beautiful and successful. I never suspected. God, I never suspected. When I told her I was pregnant, she was the first person I called after Marcus. I was so excited, so happy. We'd been trying for a year, and I'd started to worry something was wrong. But there it was. 2 pink lines on the test. A baby, our baby, the missing piece to complete our perfect life. Vanessa came over that night with champagne for Marcus and sparkling cider for me. We celebrated. She hugged me, told me she was so happy for us, that I was going to be an amazing mother. Marcus was over the moon. He kept putting his hand on my still flat stomach, talking about nursery colors and whether the baby would have my eyes or his smile. It was perfect. It was everything I dreamed of. The changes started slowly, so slowly I didn't notice at first. Vanessa started coming over more often, always when Marcus was home. She'd bring work to discuss with him, investment opportunities, she said, since she had some money to invest and trusted his expertise. Marcus, flattered and eager to help a friend, spent hours going over portfolios with her at our dining room table while I puttered around the kitchen, making dinner or folding laundry. She started dressing differently when she came over. Designer dresses that hugged her figure, heels that made her legs look endless, makeup that highlighted her striking features. I noticed, but I pushed the observation away. Vanessa had always been beautiful. She was just taking more care with her appearance. It didn't mean anything. Then came the text messages. I saw them by accident one night when Marcus was in the shower and his phone was charging on the nightstand. It buzzed, and I glanced over out of habit. The preview showed Vanessa's name and the beginning of a message. "Thanks for today. You always know exactly what I need." There were 3 heart emojis. Something cold settled in my stomach. I picked up the phone, my hands shaking. I shouldn't have. I knew I shouldn't have. But I did. I unlocked it. I knew his passcode. He'd never hidden it from me. We had that kind of marriage, or so I thought. The kind built on trust and transparency. The messages went back weeks. Flirty texts, inside jokes, references to meetings and coffee dates I didn't know about. Nothing explicitly sexual, nothing I could point to and say this is proof of an affair. But the tone, the intimacy, it was wrong. It was the way Marcus used to text me when we were first dating, playful and warm and full of hidden meaning. When Marcus came out of the shower, I confronted him. I showed him the messages, my voice shaking, asking him what was going on. He looked at the phone, then at me, and laughed. He actually laughed. "Claire," he said, shaking his head like I was being ridiculous, "it's Vanessa, your best friend. She's going through a hard time at work, and I'm helping her with some investments. That's all. You're being paranoid. Is this the pregnancy hormones?" Pregnancy hormones. He dismissed my concerns, my gut instinct that something was wrong, as pregnancy hormones. I wanted to believe him. God, I wanted to believe him so badly. So I did. I pushed down the unease, apologized for snooping, and told myself I was being crazy. Marcus loved me. Vanessa was my best friend. Nothing was going on, but things kept happening, small things. Marcus started working late more often. Vanessa stopped calling me as much, stopped coming over when Marcus wasn't home. When she did visit, she was different with me. Colder, more distant. There was something in her eyes when she looked at me, something I couldn't quite identify. Pity, maybe, or contempt. I was 4 months pregnant when I found the hotel receipt. It fell out of Marcus's suit jacket when I was taking it to the dry cleaner. The Ritz-Carlton, downtown, a king room with champagne service and late checkout. The date was from 2 weeks ago, a Tuesday night when Marcus had told me he had a late meeting with clients from out of town. My hands went numb. I stared at that receipt, at the proof of his lie, and felt my world tilt. I confronted him again that night. I showed him the receipt, demanded an explanation, and he gave me one. He said the clients had been high profile, that the firm had put them up at the Ritz, that he'd had to stay late for dinner and drinks, and it had been easier to get a room than drive home drunk. It made sense. It was plausible. But something was wrong. I could feel it in my bones. I asked if I could call the firm, verify his story. His face changed. The warmth disappeared, replaced by something hard and angry. "You don't trust me," he said, his voice low and dangerous. "After 6 years of marriage, you don't trust me. You're going to call my office and embarrass me, question my integrity because of a hotel receipt. Do you know how that makes me look? Do you know what that says about you?" He turned it around on me, made me the villain, made me apologize for doubting him, for letting my insecurities get the better of me. And like a fool, I believed him. I apologized. I promised to trust him more, to be a better wife. The trap was set, and I walked right into it. At 5 months pregnant, Vanessa invited me to lunch. "Just the 2 of us," she said, like old times. "We needed to talk," she said, "about something important." I was so grateful. I'd been feeling isolated, lonely. Marcus was distant, always working or tired or distracted. My best friend wanted to spend time with me. I jumped at the chance. We met at an upscale bistro downtown. Vanessa looked stunning in a cream-colored dress, her hair perfectly styled, her makeup flawless. I felt frumpy in comparison, my maternity jeans and oversized sweater a stark contrast to her elegance. I was showing now, my belly round and obvious, and I felt every ounce of my pregnancy weight sitting across from her. She ordered wine. I ordered water. We made small talk for a few minutes, catching up on work and family and nothing of consequence. And then she leaned forward, her expression shifting to something serious, concerned. "Claire," she said softly, "I need to tell you something. It's going to hurt, but you deserve to know the truth." My heart started pounding. I set down my water glass, my hands trembling. "Marcus came to me a few months ago," she continued, her voice gentle, sympathetic. "He told me he was unhappy in your marriage. He said you two had been having problems for a while, that you'd grown apart. He said he'd made a mistake getting married so young that he felt trapped. I couldn't breathe." The restaurant noise faded to a dull roar. All I could hear was Vanessa's voice, calm and measured, destroying my life one word at a time. "He asked me for advice," she said, "as a lawyer, you know. He wanted to know about divorce, about asset protection, about his options. And Claire, I have to tell you, he asked me about paternity testing. He said he wasn't sure the baby was his." The words hit me like a physical blow. I gasped, clutching the edge of the table. Not sure the baby was his. My husband, the only man I'd been with in 6 years, wasn't sure our baby was his. "That's insane," I whispered. I would never." Vanessa reached across the table, took my hand. "I know," she said, her eyes filled with fake sympathy. "I told him that. I told him you would never cheat. But he said there had been opportunities. Times you were alone with your personal trainer, or that guy who came to fix the roof last summer, or your ex-boyfriend from college who reached out on Facebook." Every word was calculated. Every reference was to something real, something innocent that she was twisting into evidence of infidelity. My personal trainer was a 60-year-old woman named Deb. The roofer had been there for 3 hours while Marcus was at work, and I'd stayed inside the whole time. My college ex had sent me a friend request that I'd ignored. But Vanessa made it sound suspicious, made it sound like Marcus had reason to doubt. "I think," she said slowly, carefully, like she was choosing her words with precision, "I think maybe you should get a paternity test, just to put his mind at ease. To prove to him that you've been faithful. It would save your marriage." I pulled my hand away from hers. A paternity test. She wanted me to prove my own child was my husband's. The humiliation burned through me, hot and shameful. I left the restaurant in a daze. I didn't finish my meal. I just grabbed my purse and walked out, Vanessa calling after me, her voice full of false concern. I sat in my car in the parking lot and cried until I couldn't breathe, until my chest ached and my eyes burned, and I thought I might actually suffocate from the pain of it all. When I got home, Marcus was there. He was supposed to be at work, but he was home, waiting for me. He was sitting in the living room, and when I walked in, he looked up with an expression I'd never seen before. Cold, hard, disgusted. "Vanessa called me," he said. "She told me about your lunch. She said you didn't take it well, finding out that I know the truth." "What truth?" I asked, my voice hoarse from crying. "That you've been sleeping around," he said flatly. "That the baby you're carrying probably isn't mine, that you've been lying to me for months." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Vanessa had twisted everything. She'd made it seem like she'd confronted me about my affair, like I'd confessed or broken down or admitted to cheating. None of it was true, none of it. I tried to explain. I tried to tell him what really happened, that Vanessa had said he was the one with doubts, that she'd suggested the paternity test to save our marriage. But he wouldn't listen. He talked over me, his voice rising, accusing me of gaslighting him, of trying to manipulate him, of playing the victim when I was the one who'd betrayed him. We fought for hours. It was the worst fight we'd ever had. He called me names, horrible, vicious names. He said I'd trapped him with a pregnancy, that I'd probably poked holes in condoms or lied about birth control to get pregnant on purpose. He said he'd been too good for me from the start, that I'd always been punching above my weight, and that he'd settled when he married me. Every word was a knife. Every accusation was designed to cut deeper. And through it all, I kept trying to defend myself, kept trying to make him see reason, kept begging him to believe me. He demanded a paternity test. Right then, that night, I refused. I told him it was insulting, humiliating, that I shouldn't have to prove my faithfulness. And that refusal in his mind was proof of my guilt. He moved into the guest room that night, and from that moment on, he treated me like a stranger, like an enemy. He stopped speaking to me except to make cruel comments about my weight, my appearance, my stupidity in thinking I could fool him. He told everyone we knew that we were having problems because I'd cheated. He told his family, his friends, his coworkers. He isolated me systematically, turned everyone against me before I even knew what was happening. And through it all, Vanessa was there, comforting him, supporting him, playing the role of the concerned friend who just wanted to help him through this difficult time. I found out she was pregnant 2 weeks later. She posted it on social media. A carefully curated photo of a positive pregnancy test with the caption, "Unexpected blessings. Life has a way of surprising you when you least expect it." The comments flooded in. "Congratulations. So happy for you. Who's the father?" She didn't answer that last one. She just posted a cryptic follow-up. "Some things are worth waiting for. Some people are worth fighting for." And I couldn't help but notice that Marcus liked both posts. I confronted him. I asked him point blank if he was sleeping with Vanessa, if the baby was his. He laughed in my face. He said I was delusional, paranoid, that the pregnancy hormones were making me crazy. He said Vanessa was his friend, nothing more, and that I was so desperate to deflect from my own infidelity that I was making up wild stories about him. But I knew. I knew the way you know when something is fundamentally wrong, when the person you love has become someone you don't recognize. I knew Marcus was lying. I knew Vanessa was carrying his child. I knew they were planning something, orchestrating something designed to destroy me completely. I just didn't know how bad it was going to get. At 6 months pregnant, I woke up one morning to find Marcus packing. He was loading clothes into suitcases, clearing out his things from our bedroom. I asked him what he was doing, my voice small and scared. "I'm leaving," he said without looking at me. "I can't live with a woman who cheated on me and tried to pass off another man's baby as mine. I'm moving in with Vanessa until we figure out the next steps." Moving in with Vanessa. The words hung in the air like poison gas. So he was admitting it. He was admitting he was choosing her over me, over our life together, over the child I was carrying. "And the baby?" I asked, my hand on my swollen belly. "What about the baby?" "Get a paternity test," he said coldly. "Prove it's mine. If it is, we'll discuss custody and child support. If it's not, I never want to hear from you again." He left that day, walked out of our house, out of our marriage, out of my life without looking back. I sat on the floor of our bedroom, surrounded by the empty hangers and discarded clothes he deemed unworthy to taking, and I sobbed until I had nothing left. I called my mother. She drove 4 hours to be with me. She held me while I cried, stroked my hair, told me everything would be okay, even though we both knew it wouldn't be. She wanted me to come home with her, to leave this house and this city and start over somewhere safe. But I couldn't. This was my home. This was where I'd built my life. I wasn't ready to abandon it. Not yet. The next 6 weeks were hell. Marcus hired a shark of a divorce attorney, someone with a reputation for destroying opposing parties and getting clients everything they wanted. He filed for divorce, citing infidelity and fraud. He demanded the house, the cars, the savings, everything. He said I'd deceived him, that the marriage was based on lies, that I deserved nothing. My attorney, a kind woman named Rebecca, who took my case pro bono through a legal aid program, said we had a fight ahead of us. Marcus was making wild accusations, she said, but he had no proof. The burden was on him to prove infidelity, and he couldn't because it never happened. But she warned me, family court can be unpredictable, judges are human, and if Marcus's attorney was persuasive enough, if they could plant doubt, things could go badly for me. She advised me to get the paternity test, not because she doubted me, but because it would shut down Marcus's claims definitively. It would prove I'd been faithful, that the baby was his, that his entire case was built on lies and manipulation. I refused. I was stubborn, hurt, angry. I shouldn't have to prove anything, I told Rebecca. I know I was faithful. I know this is Marcus's baby. He's the one making accusations. He should have to prove I cheated, not the other way around. Rebecca sighed. She understood my position, she said, but she urged me to reconsider. Pride wouldn't help me keep my house or get a fair settlement. Pride wouldn't protect my baby's future. Sometimes, she said gently, you have to swallow your pride to win the war. I ignored her advice. I was 7 months pregnant, swollen, and exhausted and emotionally devastated. I couldn't think straight. I couldn't see the bigger picture. All I could see was the injustice of it all, the cruelty of being forced to prove my innocence when I'd done nothing wrong. And that's how Marcus won the first round. His attorney painted me as uncooperative, secretive, hiding something. If she has nothing to hide, the attorney argued in court, why won't she take a simple DNA test? What is she afraid of? The judge, an older man with a stern face and no patience for drama, looked at me with suspicion. He ordered me to submit to a paternity test after the birth. He said it was a reasonable request given the circumstances, that it would resolve the question definitively. He also ordered me to vacate the marital home within 30 days, said I could stay there until the baby was born, but after that, I needed to find somewhere else to live while the divorce proceedings continued. I left that courtroom in tears. I'd lost my home, I'd been ordered to undergo a humiliating test to prove my own child's paternity. And Marcus, the man who'd abandoned his pregnant wife based on lies and manipulation, had won. Vanessa was at the courthouse. I saw her in the hallway, her belly round and visible under a designer maternity dress. She was talking to Marcus, her hand on his arm, her expression sympathetic and supportive. When she saw me, she smiled. It wasn't a kind smile. It was victorious. She walked over, Marcus trailing behind her. "Claire," she said, her voice dripping with false concern. "I'm so sorry it came to this. I really am. I tried to warn you that Marcus was serious about the paternity test. If you'd just done it voluntarily, none of this would have happened. I wanted to scream at her. I wanted to tell her she was a lying, manipulative snake, that she'd destroyed my marriage, that karma would come for her eventually. But I didn't. I just turned and walked away, my mother's arm around my shoulders, holding me up as I fell apart." The contractions started 3 weeks later. I was alone in the house, packing up my things to move out. My mother had gone back home to take care of my father, who'd had a small stroke. She wanted to stay, but I'd insisted she go. I told her I'd be fine, that I had a few more weeks before my due date, that I'd call if I needed anything. The first contraction hit around noon. It wasn't terrible, just a tightening in my belly, a dull ache in my lower back. I ignored it, kept packing, but they kept coming, getting stronger, getting closer together. By 3 p.m., I knew I was in labor. Real labor. Not false labor or Braxton Hicks. This baby was coming, ready or not. I called my doctor. She told me to come to the hospital. I called my mother. She started driving immediately, but she was 4 hours away. She wouldn't make it in time. I was going to do this alone. I drove myself to the hospital, gripping the steering wheel through contractions, trying to breathe through the pain. When I got to the maternity ward, they checked me in, hooked me up to monitors, checked my dilation. I was already 5 centimeters. This baby was in a hurry. The nurse, Patricia, was an angel. She held my hand, coached me through contractions, kept reassuring me that everything was going to be okay. She asked if anyone was coming to be with me. I told her my mother was on her way, but probably wouldn't make it. I didn't mention Marcus. I couldn't bear to say his name out loud. But somehow he found out. Maybe the hospital called him as my emergency contact. Maybe his attorney was monitoring the situation. Maybe Vanessa had spies watching me. I don't know. But 2 hours into my labor, Marcus walked into my delivery room with Vanessa right behind him. I couldn't believe it. I was in the worst pain of my life, vulnerable and exposed, and my husband brought his pregnant mistress to watch me give birth. The cruelty of it took my breath away. Patricia tried to stop them. She said only approved support people could be in the delivery room during active labor, but Marcus insisted. He said he was my husband, that he had a right to be there, that this might be his child, and he wanted to witness the birth. And that's when he pulled out the divorce papers. That's when he demanded I sign. That's when this nightmare became something even worse. If this story is making your blood boil like mine was, make sure you're subscribed and hit that notification bell so you don't miss what happens next. Trust me, the revenge gets so much better. Your support means everything to this channel. The contractions were relentless now, coming every 2 minutes, each one stronger than the last. I was 8 centimeters dilated, almost ready to push, and Marcus was standing over me with those papers, that pen, demanding I sign away everything while I was in the most vulnerable moment of my life. "Sign them," he said again, his voice hard and cold. "You're going to sign them now, or I swear to God, Claire, I will make your life a living hell. You think this is bad? Wait until you're homeless with a newborn, begging for scraps while I'm living in our house with Vanessa and our child." Our child. He said it so casually, so cruelly, admitting finally that Vanessa's baby was his, that he'd been sleeping with her while accusing me of infidelity, while calling me a liar and a cheat. Patricia stepped between us. Her expression had changed from kind and patient to absolutely fierce. "Sir," she said, her voice sharp as a blade, "I'm going to ask you one more time to leave this room. What you're doing is harassment. It's coercion, and I won't allow it in my delivery room." Marcus ignored her. He shoved the papers toward me, the pen rolling across the sheets. Vanessa moved closer, her hand on her belly, that smile still on her face. She was enjoying this. She wanted to watch me break, watch me lose everything. Another contraction hit. I screamed. The pain beyond anything I'd experienced. The monitors started beeping frantically. Patricia checked them, her face going pale. "Her blood pressure is too high," she said urgently. "Heart rate is spiking. We need to get this room cleared now." But Marcus wouldn't leave. He stood there, immovable, those papers in his hand. "I need her signature," he said. Patricia moved fast. She hit the call button, and within seconds, 2 security guards appeared in the doorway. She pointed at Marcus and Vanessa. "Remove them," she said. "Now, they're causing a medical emergency." The security guards didn't hesitate. They grabbed Marcus by the arms. He struggled, shouting that he had a right to be there, that this was his wife, that he needed those papers signed. Vanessa was pulled along with him, screeching about discrimination and lawsuits. The door closed behind them. The room was suddenly, blessedly quiet except for the sound of my ragged breathing and the beeping monitors. Patricia came to my side. She wiped my forehead with a cool cloth, took my hand, squeezed it gently. "You're okay," she said softly. "They're gone. They can't hurt you anymore. Now we need to focus on bringing this baby safely into the world." I nodded, tears streaming down my face. I was so tired, so scared, so broken. But I had to do this. I had to bring my baby into the world, had to protect her from the moment she took her first breath. The next hour was a blur of pain and pushing and Patricia's steady voice, coaching me through it. And then, suddenly there was a cry, high and sweet and perfect. The most beautiful sound I'd ever heard. "It's a girl," Patricia said, her voice full of joy. She placed my daughter on my chest, warm and squirming and covered in vernix. A girl. My baby girl. I looked down at her tiny face, her eyes squeezed shut, her mouth open in an indignant wail. She had a shock of dark hair, Marcus's hair. She had my nose, my chin. She was perfect. She was mine. "I'm your mama," I whispered, touching her soft cheek. "I've got you. I've got you. And nobody is going to take you from me." Patricia gave us a few minutes of skin-to-skin contact, then gently took the baby to clean her up, weigh her, do all the standard newborn procedures. 7 pounds, 4 ounces, she announced. 20 inches long, perfect APGAR scores. She's absolutely healthy. Relief flooded through me. My baby was okay. After everything, all the stress and fighting and heartbreak, she was okay. Patricia brought her back wrapped in a pink blanket, placed her in my arms. "I need to do some standard tests," she said, "including a blood type check. It's routine for all newborns." I nodded, barely listening. I couldn't stop looking at my daughter's face, memorizing every tiny feature. She'd calmed down now, was making soft little sounds, her tiny fist curled against her cheek. There was a knock at the door. Patricia went to answer it, spoke in low tones to someone outside. When she came back, her expression was troubled. "Your husband is demanding to be let back in," she said. "He says he has a right to see the baby, to verify paternity. He's threatening legal action if we don't allow him access." My arms tightened around my daughter. "No," I said. "He doesn't get to see her, not after what he did?" Patricia nodded. "I understand, but legally, as the father listed on the birth certificate—" "He's not listed," I interrupted. "I haven't filled out the birth certificate yet, and I'm not listing him until I'm forced to." Patricia hesitated. "There's something else," she said. "He's demanding we do a paternity test immediately. His attorney is here with a court order." A court order? He'd planned this. He'd known I was in labor, had known I'd have the baby today, and he'd gotten a judge to issue an emergency order for a DNA test. The level of calculation, of cruelty, was staggering. "Fine," I said, my voice hollow. "Do the test. Take whatever you need. I have nothing to hide." Patricia squeezed my shoulder. "I know you don't," she said softly. "I can see it in your face, in the way you look at this baby. She's yours. She's his. And once we prove it, he won't have any more excuses." She left the room. I held my daughter close, breathed in her sweet baby smell, tried to calm my racing heart. This was it. This was the moment of truth. The test would prove I'd been faithful, would prove Marcus had destroyed our marriage based on lies and paranoia and his own guilty conscience. And then what? He'd want custody. He'd want to take my baby from me, raise her with Vanessa, make me the weekend parent in my own child's life. The thought made me physically ill. 15 minutes later, Patricia returned with a technician. They took a cheek swab from the baby, careful and gentle. My daughter didn't even cry, just blinked up at them with wide, unfocused eyes. "We'll have preliminary results in a few hours," the technician said. "We're running it as a priority given the legal situation. Full results will take a few days, but we'll know enough soon." They left. I was alone again with my daughter. I fed her for the first time, marveling at how she knew exactly what to do, how her tiny mouth latched on and she nursed like a champion. She was strong. She was a fighter. "Just like her mother," I whispered. I must have dozed off because the next thing I knew, Patricia was shaking me gently awake. The room was darker now, the sun setting outside the window. My daughter was asleep in the bassinet beside my bed. "The results are back," Patricia said. Her voice was strange, tight with something I couldn't identify. And, I asked, my heart pounding. Patricia sat down in the chair beside my bed. She was holding a file folder, her hands gripping it tightly. "Claire," she said, "I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest with me." I sat up straighter, ignoring the pain from my C-section incision. "What is it?" "The baby's blood type is AB negative," Patricia said slowly. "It's a very rare type. Only about 1% of the population has it." I didn't understand what she was getting at. My blood type was O positive. Marcus was A positive. I knew from high school biology that our daughter could be A or O, but I didn't know the specifics about positive and negative. "Here's the thing," Patricia continued. "For a baby to have AB blood, both parents need to have either A or B blood types. Or one parent needs to have AB. Your blood type is O. You can't have a child with AB blood." The words didn't make sense. I stared at her, trying to process. "You're saying," I began, but I couldn't finish the sentence. "I'm saying," Patricia said gently, "that biologically this baby cannot be yours." The room tilted. My vision blurred. "That's impossible," I whispered. "I gave birth to her. She came out of my body. How can she not be mine?" Patricia's expression was filled with compassion and confusion. "I don't know," she said, "but the blood work doesn't lie, and there's more." "More? What more could there possibly be? We ran your husband's blood type from our records. He had an appointment here last year for a minor procedure. He's O positive, same as you." Patricia paused. "He also can't be this baby's biological father." The world stopped. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think. Marcus wasn't the father, but neither was I, apparently, which meant... There was a mix-up, I said, the words tumbling out in a panic. "At the fertility clinic. We did IVF. They must have mixed up the embryos. This isn't our baby. We didn't do IVF. I'd gotten pregnant naturally." But in that moment, I was grasping at any explanation, any possibility that made sense of this nightmare. Patricia shook her head slowly. "Claire, your chart says you conceived naturally. There's no IVF noted anywhere in your medical history." "Then I don't understand," I said, my voice rising. "I don't understand what you're telling me. Whose baby is this?" "Where is my baby?" Patricia took my hand. She looked me in the eyes, her expression grave. "I think," she said carefully, "that there may have been a mix-up here at the hospital. I think it's possible that your baby and another baby born around the same time were switched." Switched. The word echoed in my head. My baby was somewhere else, in someone else's arms. And this baby, this beautiful, perfect baby I'd been holding and nursing and falling in love with, wasn't mine. I started to hyperventilate. Patricia called for help. Nurses rushed in. They gave me oxygen, checked my vitals, tried to calm me down. But I couldn't calm down. Couldn't breathe. My baby. Where was my baby? Through my panic, I heard voices in the hallway. Marcus's voice, loud and angry, demanding to know the test results. Patricia left the room. I could hear her talking to him, hear her telling him there was a situation, a complication, that he needed to wait. But Marcus wasn't patient. The door burst open. He stormed in, Vanessa right behind him, and they both stopped dead when they saw me. I was sitting up in bed, oxygen mask on my face, tears streaming down my cheeks, my whole body shaking. The baby was in the bassinet, sleeping peacefully, completely unaware that her world had just imploded. "What's going on?" Marcus demanded. "Where are the test results?" Patricia stepped between us again. "Mr. Thompson," she said firmly, "there's been a development. We need to run additional tests." The initial results were inconclusive. Inconclusive? Marcus's face turned red. What the hell does that mean? Patricia didn't answer. She looked at me, her expression asking permission. I nodded weakly. He needed to know. He needed to understand that his crusade against me, his accusations and cruelty had all been for nothing. "The baby's blood type indicates she's not biologically related to either of you," Patricia said flatly. "We're investigating the possibility of a hospital mix-up." Silence. Absolute, ringing silence. Marcus stared at Patricia, then at me, then at the sleeping baby in the bassinet. His face went from red to white in the span of a heartbeat. "What?" he whispered. Vanessa grabbed his arm. "What does she mean, a mix-up? Whose baby is that?" "We don't know yet," Patricia said. "We're checking records, reviewing security footage, trying to determine what happened. But yes, it appears there was a switch. This baby is not Claire and Marcus's biological child." Marcus stumbled backward. He grabbed the edge of the bed to steady himself. his eyes wide with shock and horror. "Not my baby," he repeated. "Not my baby, and not mine," I said, my voice breaking. "My baby is somewhere else, Marcus. Our daughter is somewhere else. And it's your fault. If you hadn't been so obsessed with proving I cheated, if you hadn't destroyed our marriage over lies, we would have realized something was wrong sooner. We could have fixed this, but instead you served me divorce papers while I was in labor. You brought your mistress to my delivery room, and now our real baby is with strangers." The words hit him like physical blows. He sank into a chair, his head in his hands. Vanessa was looking at the baby with an expression of disgust. "So whose is she then?" she asked. "If she's not yours, who did you switch babies with?" Patricia checked her tablet. According to our records, there was only one other baby girl born in this hospital in the same time frame as Claire's delivery. She paused. "The mother's name is Diana Westbrook." Diana Westbrook. The name meant nothing to me, but I was going to find her. I was going to find the woman who had my baby, who was holding my daughter, who didn't know her whole world was about to change. Patricia left to make calls, to start the process of investigating the switch, of contacting Diana, of figuring out how this nightmare had happened. Marcus sat in that chair, silent and shell-shocked. Vanessa stood beside him, her hand on his shoulder, but her face was calculating. She was already thinking ahead, already trying to figure out how to spin this to her advantage. The baby in the bassinet stirred. She made a soft sound, a tiny whimper, and without thinking, I reached for her. I picked her up, held her against my chest, even though I now knew she wasn't mine, because in that moment, she needed someone. She was innocent in all this, a victim of adult mistakes and hospital negligence. Marcus looked up. He saw me holding her, and his face crumpled. "That's not our baby," he said, his voice hollow. "That's someone else's daughter." "I know," I said, "but she's still a baby. She still needs to be held." "Where's ours?" he asked, and for the first time since this nightmare began, I heard real emotion in his voice, genuine fear and grief. "Where's our little girl, Claire?" "I don't know," I whispered, "but we're going to find her." An hour later, Patricia returned with hospital administration and a lawyer. They explained that they'd located Diana Westbrook, that she was still in the hospital, recovering from her own delivery, that her baby had been born within an hour of mine in an adjacent delivery room. They explained that due to a staffing shortage and a computer glitch, 2 babies had been taken to the nursery at the same time without proper identification bands. The nurse who'd taken them had been new, overwhelmed, and had placed them in the wrong bassinets when she brought them back to their mothers. It was a cascade of failures, the lawyer said. Multiple safety protocols were bypassed or ignored. "We take full responsibility and we're prepared to offer compensation for this egregious error." "I don't want your money," I said, my voice shaking with rage. "I want my baby. I want my daughter." "They're bringing Diana and the other baby here now," the administrator said. "We'll facilitate the exchange and we'll provide genetic testing to confirm both babies are with their biological parents before anyone leaves this hospital." Exchange. Like we were trading merchandise, like my daughter was a package that had been delivered to the wrong address. The wait was excruciating. 20 minutes felt like 20 hours. Marcus paced the room like a caged animal. Vanessa had left, said she needed air, said this was too much for her in her condition. I was glad she was gone. I didn't want her here for this moment. Finally, there was a knock on the door. Patricia opened it, and a woman walked in. She was young, maybe late 20s, with red hair and freckles and exhausted eyes. She was holding a baby wrapped in a pink blanket, and the moment I saw that tiny face, I knew. I knew with every cell in my body, with every instinct I possessed. That was my daughter. Diana saw me at the same time. She saw me looking at the baby in her arms, and her face crumpled. She started crying, clutching the baby tighter. "I can't," she sobbed. "I can't give her to you. I've been feeding her, holding her, bonding with her. She's mine." "She's not," I said, standing up despite the pain in my body. "She's mine. And that baby I've been holding, she's yours." The nurse brought in the baby from my bassinet. Diana looked at her, and I saw the recognition there too, the instant knowing. Biology is powerful. We both felt it, that pull toward our own children, that certainty that couldn't be explained or rationalized. The genetic test confirmed it an hour later, but we didn't need them. We already knew. We'd already made the exchange, both of us crying, both of us traumatized, both of us holding our real daughters for the first time. My baby, my real baby, had Marcus's dark hair and my nose. She had his long fingers and my eye shape. She was perfect. She was mine. and I'd missed the first hours of her life because of a hospital error and my husband's cruelty. Marcus stood beside me, looking down at our daughter with an expression I couldn't read. "Is that her?" he asked softly. "Is that really her?" "Yes," I said. "This is our daughter." He reached out tentatively, touched her tiny hand. She wrapped her fingers around his, and I saw tears in his eyes for the first time in months. "Claire," he said, his voice breaking. "I'm so sorry. God, I'm so sorry for everything." But sorry wasn't enough. Sorry didn't undo the divorce papers, didn't undo the accusations and the cruelty in bringing Vanessa to my delivery room. Sorry didn't give me back the trust and love and life we'd had before he destroyed it all. I held my daughter close, breathed in her smell, felt her warmth against my chest, and I knew with absolute certainty what I had to do. Thank you for staying until the end. If this story gave you the justice you needed to see, check out the other videos on screen. They're just as satisfying. And if you haven't subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? See you in the next story. 2 days later, I was discharged from the hospital with my real daughter. I'd named her Grace because Grace was what had saved us. The grace of a nurse who'd caught the error before it was too late. The grace of a blood test that revealed the truth. The grace of having my real child back in my arms. Marcus tried to visit us that first day. I refused to see him. He tried again the second day. Again, I refused. He sent flowers, sent messages through Patricia, sent his mother to plead his case. I ignored all of it. On the third day, my attorney, Rebecca, called. "Claire," she said, "we need to talk about the divorce." "What about it?" I asked, adjusting Grace in my arms as she nursed. Marcus's attorney called. "They want to withdraw the filing. Marcus wants to reconcile." I laughed. It was a bitter, hollow sound. Of course he does. Now that he knows Grace is his, now that his entire case against me has been proven false, now he wants to come back. "What do you want to do?" Rebecca asked. I thought about it. Thought about the house and the life and the marriage I'd lost. Thought about taking him back, trying to rebuild, giving Grace an intact family. And then I thought about him handing me divorce papers while I was in labor. I thought about Vanessa's smirk, about the cruelty and the accusations and the months of gaslighting and manipulation. I thought about the man I'd married versus the monster he'd become. "I want to proceed with the divorce," I said firmly, "but I want to file my own petition. I want to take everything he tried to take from me, and I want full custody of Grace." Rebecca was quiet for a moment. "You know he'll fight you on custody," she said. "He has rights as the father, does he?" I asked, after what he did. After he abandoned his pregnant wife, accused her of infidelity, tried to force her to sign away her rights while in active labor. After he brought his mistress to the delivery room. "You don't think a judge will consider that?" "I think," Rebecca said slowly, "that we have a very strong case, especially given what the hospital confirmed." "What did they confirm?" "The security footage. Patricia flagged it. The cameras in the hallway. Outside your delivery room caught everything. Marcus demanding you sign the papers. You screaming in pain. Him refusing to leave even when medical staff asked. Vanessa's presence. All of it." I felt something cold and hard settle in my chest. "Good," I said. "Use it. Use everything. I want him to lose everything the way he tried to make me lose everything." Rebecca paused. "Claire," she said carefully, "I need to make sure you're thinking clearly. Revenge is satisfying in the moment, but it can backfire. Are you sure this is what you want?" I looked down at Grace, sleeping peacefully against my chest. She was innocent. She deserved a mother who would fight for her, protect her, make sure she grew up knowing she was loved and valued and worth protecting. "I'm sure," I said. "I've never been more sure of anything in my life." The divorce proceedings took 6 months. They were ugly, bitter, and public. Rebecca subpoenaed the hospital security footage. She called Patricia as a witness. She brought in Diana Westbrook to testify about the mix-up, about how the hospital's negligence had been compounded by Marcus's behavior. She subpoenaed Marcus's phone records and found thousands of text messages between him and Vanessa going back over a year. Explicit messages, planning messages, messages about how to get me out of the picture so they could be together. Messages about how Vanessa had deliberately planted seeds of doubt about my faithfulness, how she'd fabricated evidence, how she'd manipulated Marcus into believing I was cheating. It was all there. The entire conspiracy, laid out in text form. Vanessa had set this whole thing in motion, and Marcus had been a willing participant, ready to believe the worst of me because it gave him an excuse to pursue what he really wanted. The judge was not sympathetic to Marcus. When he saw the security footage of Marcus trying to force me to sign divorce papers while I was in labor, His face turned to stone. When he read the text messages between Marcus and Vanessa, when he heard Patricia's testimony about the medical stress Marcus had caused, about how my blood pressure had spiked dangerously, he'd had enough. He awarded me the house, the cars, 70% of the savings and retirement accounts. He awarded me full physical custody of Grace, with Marcus getting supervised visitation only, 2 weekends a month. He ordered Marcus to pay child support and alimony. He issued a restraining order, preventing Vanessa from coming within 500 feet of me or Grace. And then he did something I didn't expect. He recommended criminal charges against Vanessa for fraud and conspiracy. The prosecutor took the case. Vanessa was charged with multiple counts related to her scheme to destroy my marriage. Her legal career was over, her reputation was destroyed, and Marcus, realizing she'd manipulated him as much as she'd manipulated me, left her. She gave birth to their son alone. Marcus refused to be there, refused to sign the birth certificate, refused to have anything to do with either of them. The irony was not lost on me. 6 months after the divorce was finalized, I stood in my kitchen, Grace and a bouncer on the floor beside me, making breakfast. The house was quiet, peaceful. It was mine now, truly mine. Marcus's things were gone. His presence was erased. My phone rang. It was Patricia. "Claire," she said, "I wanted to check in, see how you're doing." "I'm good," I said, and I meant it. "Grace is thriving. I'm healing. We're going to be okay." "I'm glad," Patricia said. "You deserved so much better than what happened to you." "I know," I said, "and I'm making sure Grace knows she deserves better too. I'm raising her to be strong, to trust her instincts, to never let anyone make her doubt her worth." "You're going to be a wonderful mother," Patricia said. After we hung up, I picked up Grace. She smiled at me, a gummy, drooly smile that made my heart melt. I kissed her forehead, breathed in her baby smell. "We made it," I whispered. "We survived, and now we get to live the life we deserve." The doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone. I carried Grace to the front door, checked the peephole. It was Diana, the woman whose baby had been switched with mine. We'd stayed in touch over the months, bonded by our shared trauma. She understood what I'd been through in a way no one else could. I opened the door. Diana stood there with her daughter Emma in her arms. "I hope it's okay I stopped by," she said. "I was in the neighborhood and I thought maybe Grace and Emma should have a play date. They are technically sisters in a weird way." I laughed. "Come in," I said. We sat in my living room, our daughters on a blanket between us. They were too young to play, but they looked at each other with curiosity, reaching tiny hands toward each other. "How are you doing?" Diana asked. "Better," I said. "The divorce is finalized. The house is mine. Marcus is out of my life except for supervised visits." "And Vanessa?" "Awaiting trial," I said. "Her lawyer's trying to negotiate a plea deal, but the prosecutor isn't budging. She's looking at serious time." "Good," Diana said fiercely. "She deserves it." We sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching our daughters. Then Diana said, "You know, in a twisted way, I'm grateful for what happened." I looked at her in surprise. "Grateful?" She nodded. "If the babies hadn't been switched, if the blood test hadn't revealed the truth, you might never have known what Marcus and Vanessa were really like. You might have stayed in that marriage, miserable and gaslighted, for years. The mix-up forced the truth into the light." I thought about that. She was right. The hospital's error, as traumatic as it had been, had also exposed Marcus's true nature. It had given me the evidence I needed to protect myself and my daughter. It had, in a strange way, saved me. "You're right," I said. "I never thought of it that way." "We're survivors," Diana said. "Both of us. And our daughters are going to grow up, strong because of it." I looked down at Grace, at her perfect little face, at the life ahead of her, a life where she'd never see her father abuse her mother, a life where she'd grow up knowing her worth, a life where she'd learn from my mistakes and my strength. "Yes," I said, "they are." That evening, after Diana left, I put Grace to bed. I stood over her crib, watching her sleep, and I thought about everything that had happened. The betrayal, the pain, the hospital mix-up, the divorce, the revenge. And I realized I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't bitter. I was just tired and ready to move forward. Marcus had tried to destroy me. Vanessa had tried to take everything I had. And they'd both failed, because I was stronger than they knew. I was smarter than they'd given me credit for. And I had something they would never have. I had my daughter, I had my integrity, I had my truth. And that was worth more than any marriage, any house, any revenge. I kissed Grace's forehead one more time, whispered, "I love you," and walked out of the nursery. Tomorrow was a new day, a day without Marcus's shadow hanging over me, a day where I got to be just Claire, not Marcus's wife or Marcus's victim, just me. And that was exactly who I wanted to be. The story of what Marcus did to me, what Vanessa did, what the hospital's negligence caused, it became local news. Reporters called wanting interviews. I declined most of them. This wasn't about publicity or revenge anymore. It was about moving forward. But I did agree to one interview. A local news station wanted to do a piece about hospital safety protocols, about the importance of proper identification procedures for newborns. They wanted to use my story as an example of what could go wrong. I agreed because I didn't want another mother to go through what I'd gone through. I wanted the hospital to be held accountable, to make changes, to ensure no other baby was switched. The interview aired on a Tuesday evening. I watched it with my mother, who'd come to stay with me for a few weeks to help with Grace. "You were very brave," my mother said, squeezing my hand. "I didn't feel brave," I said. "I just felt like I was doing what had to be done." "That's what bravery is," she said. "Doing what has to be done even when you're scared." The interview had an impact. The hospital implemented new protocols. They installed additional cameras. They required two-person verification for all infant identification procedures. They fired the nurse who'd made the initial mistake and the supervisor who'd failed to catch it. It didn't undo what had happened to Grace and Emma, but it might prevent it from happening to someone else. Marcus watched the interview. I know because he called my attorney the next day, saying he wanted to apologize, wanted to talk to me, wanted another chance. Rebecca called me with the message. "What do you want me to tell him?" she asked. "Tell him no," I said. "Tell him I have nothing to say to him. Tell him to focus on being the best father he can be during his supervised visits and leave me alone." She did, and Marcus stopped calling. Vanessa's trial happened 8 months after Grace was born. The prosecutor offered her a plea deal, 5 years probation and community service. She refused, insisted she was innocent, demanded a jury trial. The jury deliberated for 3 hours. They found her guilty on all counts. The judge sentenced her to 18 months in prison and 5 years probation after release. I didn't go to the sentencing. I didn't need to see her face, didn't need that closure. Knowing she was facing consequences for what she'd done was enough. Marcus called me the day after the sentencing. He somehow got through to my number, bypassed Rebecca completely. "Claire," he said when I answered, surprised, "I need to talk to you." "No, you don't," I said. "Whatever you have to say it to my lawyer. Please," he begged. "Just give me 5 minutes. I need you to know that I was wrong. About everything. I was manipulated, yes, but I was also weak. I believed the worst of you because it was easier than facing the truth about myself. I was silent, waiting. The truth," he continued, his voice breaking, "is that I was unhappy. Not with you, with myself, with my life. I was turning 40, feeling like I'd missed something, like there should be more. And when Vanessa showed me attention, made me feel wanted and exciting again, I grabbed onto it. I let her convince me you were the problem so I didn't have to admit I was." "That's a lot of therapy talk," I said flatly. "I've been seeing a therapist," he admitted, trying to understand why I did what I did, trying to become someone worthy of being Grace's father. "Good," I said. "You needed therapy. Claire, do you think—" He paused. "Could you ever forgive me? I thought about it, really thought about it. Could I forgive him? Maybe someday. But forgiveness didn't mean reconciliation, didn't mean trust, didn't mean going back. I can forgive you," I said slowly, "for my own peace. But I will never forget, and I will never take you back. What you did, Marcus, it wasn't just cruel. It was unforgivable in the context of a marriage. You can be Grace's father. You can work on yourself and be better. But you will never be my husband again." He was crying. I could hear it in his breathing. "I understand," he said, "and for what it's worth, I'm sorry. I'm so, so sorry." We hung up. I stood there holding my phone, feeling a strange sense of peace. I'd said what I needed to say, I'd been honest, I'd been strong, and I'd meant every word. Grace's first birthday was a celebration, not just of her life, but of our survival. I threw a party in the backyard of our house. My parents came. Diana came with Emma. My support group from therapy came. Friends who'd stood by me through everything came. Marcus asked if he could attend. I said no. This was my day with Grace. Our day. He could celebrate with her during his next visit. As I watched, Grace smash her cake, her face covered in frosting, her laugh infectious and joyful, I felt overwhelming gratitude. Grateful she was healthy, grateful I'd survived, grateful for the life we were building. Diana came up beside me, Emma on her hip. "They're going to be okay, aren't they?" she said. "Our girls." "Yes," I said. "They're going to be better than okay, because we're not going to let what happened to us define them. We're going to raise them strong and loved and confident. We're going to teach them their worth, and we're going to make sure they never settle for less than they deserve." Diana smiled. "That's the best revenge," she said. "Living well, raising them well, showing the people who tried to break us that they failed." She was right. The best revenge wasn't hurting Marcus or Vanessa, though their consequences were justified. The best revenge was this: standing in my backyard, watching my daughter celebrate her first birthday, surrounded by people who loved us, living a life full of peace and purpose and hope. Marcus had tried to destroy me. He'd failed, and now I was thriving. That night, after everyone left, after Grace was asleep, I sat on my porch with a glass of wine and looked up at the stars. I thought about the woman I'd been a year ago, terrified and in labor, being served divorce papers by a cruel husband. I thought about the woman I was now, strong, independent, confident, a survivor. The journey from there to here had been hell, but I'd made it, and I'd made it on my own terms, with my dignity intact, with my daughter in my arms. I raised my glass to the stars. To survival, I whispered. To justice, to new beginnings, and to the future, whatever it might hold. Because I wasn't afraid anymore. I'd faced the worst and come out the other side. Whatever came next, I could handle it. I was Claire. I was Grace's mother. I was a survivor, and I was finally, truly free.